our expert evidence adjudicator, I can say, our Justice Prakash Rao Garu. I request His Lordship to take the class, start the class and discuss upon this electronic evidence. Please mute your all phones or mics. Number one. Number two, give your questions on chat box as and when you want to give it. At the end of the lecture, we'll be keeping all these things, answering the questions one by one. Till then, please do not interfere in the lecture of our Honorable Justice Mr. Prakash Rao Garu, because it will divert the main part of it. At the end, we may have nearly 15 to 20 minutes for the questions, answers, and discussions on this electronic evidence, etc. I request all of you to take enough attention for this particular. May I request Justice Prakash Rao to start the class?
Yes.
Justice Prakash Rao Garu.
Very good afternoon to you, sir. And very good afternoon to Namaskars and afternoon to all the participants here. It's a very nice occasion for me to be amongst all the gurus. It's being a teacher's training course. So therefore, one guru to all other gurus. So the director of this Narasimha Rao Garu and all other participants, including special invitees, if any they are there. I just would like to mention today the importance of the day to begin with. Today is the date of birth of the Edward Gibbon. Hope most of you may be knowing, because that's the one author whom I have been recommending to all my judicial officers and also other audience wherever I am visiting to read the Gibbon's Decline and Fall of Roman Empire. So he is born in today, and today is in 1737. And another date of birth is that of Chinmayananda Swami. Those who are little the religious bent of mind, today happens to be his date of birth. He was born in 1916. Of course, he died in 1993. There is also another incidentally date of birth of Girija Devi, one of the famous classical singer of good old days, born in 1929. So with the commencement of the mentioning these three important events, I would like to come back to the topic as such. So basically, I am slightly hesitant to face you all, because there is a this is considered to be, or why considered, but this is a training course to the teachers. So should we treat you as students, or should we treat you as co-teachers? I was just reminded of that answer which is given to the Alexander by Chandragupta when he was caught and brought before a king Alexander. The Alexander asked, "How should I treat you?" Then Chandragupta said, "You should treat me as one king treats the other. So therefore, I am treating you all as my gurus as well, because it's all Mukhe Mukhe Saraswati. This is what normally is being said. I can learn from you, and you can learn from me, and you can learn together also." Then, but one thing which is slightly troubling me in this type of lectures, especially after hearing a couple of sessions yesterday and day before yesterday also. After all, we are all the law teachers, basically now, trying to convey and enhance the knowledge and awareness about the law to the students who are totally blank. They begin with beginning. So students, when you are taking a couple of questions, and many queries also have come up in the last two sessions also, whether especially on the day for the yesterday also, whether we should treat them as a student of law simpliciter, or should we treat them as a law as a person would be lawyer, or would be judge, or would be as a simple legal advisor, and how we should lay a foundation for that. So this is the one, because what troubles everybody, even the student who joins the law college, he doesn't know. He may have expectations, of course, to become a lawyer, to become a judge, and to become a whatever else. But many times we found that most of the lawyers ultimately landing in different other vocations and professions other than the law, and they have been successful, very much successful, and they have been contributors in the Indian freedom movement also even today. All the leading figures, mostly even in the corporate field also, you find those coming from the law background. So therefore, taking this as a basic aspect, I request and I personally consider that we, the law teachers, should not aim that here we are making a law, we are as a corporate advisor or as a judge, whatever it is, but making as a lawman, a person with full knowledge of the law. So that send him out with full awareness and legal equipment, whatever is needed, so that whichever field he goes, he will be successful. I come across people, most successful doctors doing MBBS after law, most successful engineers after doing law. So therefore, let us begin with the beginning itself, forgetting that we are training them as OISS. But one thing is staring at us, normally which is being complained, that most of our students, after completing the course, they are not joining the legal practice. And this is what we found on even in the service, judicial service also. But this is also one thing we should take care. That is the reason why Bar Council has come with a suggestion on the topic. Other day we had a nice discussion on the clinical education. Be that as it may, we must ultimately bring him to be a lawman rather than a man with possessing law, legal awareness, legal knowledge as such. Now, coming into the business, coming to this aspect of the electronical evidence, now you see, you are all, every one of us is aware that this 21st century has saw a technological greater wonderful revolution. So with the earlier centuries saw a lot of scientific evolution of new gadgets, new facilities, telephone, electricity, and something like that. But now this 21st century has brought in this electronic field. This is virtually is entering into every nook and corner of the universe, and including in the activities in the home and also the kitchen. So this is a total different space is being created, that is called as cyberspace. Now we have to necessarily think on the lines of preparing or drafting or coming out with principles, basic or advanced principles, and create a sort of cyber jurisprudence. So I think that is not the day for apart. So that one day somebody would take it seriously and come out with wonderful books on that. In fact, we are the cyberspace, cyber activity, and cyber actions and all that things are so fast, even far faster than the even the COVID also. In spite of the COVID, we are now successfully holding these meetings and it is conducting and lot of activities going on. So therefore, this, but still there is one staring aspect is we the law teachers tell from the existing law those statutes or laws as exist, and the law considered to be always 10 years behind. Sociologically and reading with legally also, are we keeping pace with the advancement in this technologically? So therefore, this is one question which we should have on the back of mind before we start teaching the students on any particular topic, and especially the cyber law or this electronic evidence. Now, coming to this aspect, now let us see the situation where now just compare yourself. Though certain questions have been put by the directors, Mr. Narasimha Garu, about 63, 65, the procedure, and how we have to adopt and all that things. Those who are having basic awareness about the basic conceptions of the law, like even from the jurisprudence or even from the Halsbury's law, whatever you can call it. See, one need not worry about it. One need not worry about this advancement and technological advancement and all that thing. In fact, so many laws, which in fact I personally feel, so many new laws which are coming forth are not necessary. Even our IPC, CPC, CRPCs, or existing other substantive laws could certainly take care of such things. Be that as it may, before this IT Act has come into the force, I just would like to make it clear that because you are all law teachers, I am not going to read any provision of law, but only cover the topic just overall. Prior to this law has come into a force, IT Act, what was the position? Now take for instance, when we were appearing in the trial court, we wanted to prove a sort of a Xerox copy, a photostat copy. How to prove it? We had, in fact, as a young lawyer, I too had a lot of difficulties in collecting the evidence and all that. But at least we are told, not only we are told, but also we did follow that practice. Suppose take for instance a photocopy or a Xerox copy or even a positive photograph also. There we were told and we followed it also. The man who has taken the photograph, the person who has taken the photos, the studio man, has to be examined. And along with the positive, we are supposed to produce a negative. That apart, also a slip of the receipt issued by that particular studio fellow person, and also the shop where we had Xerox copy also necessarily has to. So therefore, by this almost like a link in a circumstantial cases and all that thing, we need to have a sort of this examination of the witnesses, and then only it stands true. Otherwise, negative produced positive not accept. Now, the person who has taken the Xerox because basically it has to be spelled, it has to be seen whether the original exists or not, and it is from that original this Xerox copy or this photograph is taken, and so therefore then only it stands true. Now I'll come back. I'll come to 63, 65, 65B and 65A and all that. Now, even because we almost read all those provisions, we are aware of all that. Just I would like to ask one question. Do you find any sort of difference between the procedure as existed earlier, or do we find any change in procedure as contemplated specifically by laying down certain conditions in 65A or 65B? This is a one question which for many people, many practitioners, not only practicing parties are also it has as to how to prove and all that things. And even especially the criminal cases. The criminal cases are going rather astray without following these procedures, and they're feeling that they are not established. Not only that, in fact, most of the judicial officers also are faced with this picked situation. So they're taking little further the prior situation. Now there have been certain provisions even in the Bankers Evidence Act after the procedure. It's unlike when they are producing some computerized extract as now is available. There is a procedure to get the book there into the court and file have it compared and take it back. Then there is also, even prior to the IT Act, there are a couple of provisions which are very interesting nature as existing under the Evidence Act. Look at the section 88. Section 88 of the Evidence Act draws a presumption in respect of telegraphic messages. What is it about? Do we find any sort of different or variation with that of the electronic evidence in the proof as required in the subsequent the other later provisions? So therefore, this procedure, this aspect was already in vogue, not only in vogue, but also recognized by the statute in a specific provision. Even under 84, now look at the 84, very wonderful. The law books, law journals, which we are every day, you and I, and on every practitioner is a need through. The 84 recognizes the validity and acceptance of the law journals. What is it about? It's again an extended limb of the required method of proof for the law, the decisions which are being cited across and other things. Now, one aspect which is troubling me for all the while, after especially the amendments have been brought to the not only to the IT Act and other provisions, but especially the Code of Civil Procedure. Now, because this is now we are considering the Evidence Act, therefore I thought I should mention about the section 1. In the beginning itself, the opening opening provision, section 1 itself says that this doesn't apply to affidavits. This doesn't apply to arbitration. It's all right. But affidavit doesn't apply. But the CPC has undergone amendment under order 18. 18, the specific provision is been made to file the affidavits in lieu of the chief examinations of the witnesses. Now what? And section 1 has not been amended. Section 1 remains as such, and still the affidavits are being accepted. And if you are fully aware about the regular things that are happening in the court today, especially before the trial court, all the not only the parties but the lawyers are also finding not only the duplication of the verb but also the practical difficulty. Basically, if you can't accept as per section 1 of the Evidence Act, the affidavit, how can you accept the affidavit is drafted in the chambers of the respective advocates? And most of the affidavits, when the witness comes into the witness box, he is totally glaring, staring, giving a staring impression, and virtually amounting to a denial and pleading ignorance also. And the lawyers are also facing difficulties. That apart, most of the judges now have stopped looking into the affidavits, prepared affidavits. They start, suppose you refer to PW1 or DW1. Well, what is it being referred? It is the portion of the cross-examination, not the chief examination. So therefore, virtually the importance of the affidavit and the importance of the chief examination has been substantially watered down. So therefore, my self-sufficient, my approach is, my should be that though you have introduced this procedure of the affidavit, for the purpose of convenience and also because of the pendency and the backlog in respective court so that it can help in early disposal. But that doesn't mean that in a contested cases where serious questions are involved, you can't opt for such affidavits and put the parties to it as such a risk. I can understand the commerciality. Some suit for money and something like that, we can opt for it. But give a discretion to the advocate, discretion to the party, discretion to the judge, to act, to suggest and to follow certain procedures. Now, after this, now the other provisions which are relevant today, relevant for the purpose of today's discussion is basically the Evidence Act as prior to the amendment contemplates only that evidence which is primary, which is original, which has to be produced, including the oral evidence, including and also that of the documents. And it also contemplated under 63-65 the procedure for secondary evidence. The procedure for secondary evidence is also its own rigmarole because you have to have, so basically they prove the existence of the original, and it is from there this particular copy or whatever it is secondary evidence has been made up. So these two things are very relevant, and these all aspects covered from 61 to 65. So therefore, now coming back to this IT Act, before we can take it to the amended provisions of the Evidence Act, the relevant provisions which are there you can find in the IT Act of which has brought in forth with the 2000 certain amendments. And this is not another critical angle which I particularly look towards these amendments and the IT Act provisions, because this IT Act or the amendments has a certain follow-up legislation, I can put it, you Central United Nations Commission on International Trade Law report actually follows it. This is all because keeping in view the trade, keeping in view the commercial activity, keeping in view for the convenience of the trade and for making it easy passing through. Therefore, these amendments are being brought. What is it about that amendment made in Negotiable Instruments Act? Regarding the promises, regarding which check dishonoring and other. And what is it about the establishment of commercial code? And now look at this at the back of mind. And now look at these provisions also little critically. This is nothing but virtually help the commercial field, to help the commercial field rather than the more the general field other than the commercial act. So therefore, my is that this necessarily has to have its own approach and consideration and applicability. Now, this amendment which are being brought is now regarding only for the purpose of admissibility of the electronic evidence. Therefore, the and all those things which are being defined or narrated or specifically pointed out under the IT Act has been taken care of under the Evidence Act, and therefore consequently IPC also has undergone amendment. Similarly, the Bankers Books Evidence Act also has undergone amendment, and now with these amendments and with the production of those type of evidence and being coming forth in almost every case, especially in the criminal case also, the courts have also I put it that courts have also virtually learned how to become passive, how to accept it rather than reject it. Because now this is a serious comment I am making, because you came across many a situation while considering the cases under 63, 65. There more rejections were there. Whereas now in 65A and 65B, you come across situations where acceptance is more, not the rejection, because you feel the judge feels the person who consider this has to act or not to act has no other option but to act on it and proceed further. Therefore, this is a virtually a sea change which has been brought. Of course, the attempt is only to see the attempt of the provisions of the amended is only to help. Rather, I can put it, it is said that is only for the purpose of establishing the relevancy, capacity, authenticity, and further to avoid a serious comment against which is being made. That is about avoiding the hearsay, and also to check if these copies are really from original. What exactly these evidence constitutes? Now we have come across, you and I, we have seen so many gadgets, so many things have been coming up. Now this is being covered telecommunications, electronic multimedia devices, emails, digital photographs, ATM transaction logs, word processing, documents, instant messages, histories, and files saved from accounting programs, spreadsheets, internet browser histories, databases, contents of computer memory, computer backup, computer printouts, and global position system tracks also, and logs from hotels, electronic door logs, and digital audio video files, and also the several smart cards and navigation systems, etc. Now there is somebody has made a related comment why this law has taken care of including the brain also as one of the electronic devices. Now this is all being done that all these gadgets, all if I can put the expression the gadgets or the evidence can be used or can be relied on for the purpose of proving a particular case has been taken care now under section 65A. 65A provides that you follow 65B. 65B says what is to be deemed to be a document. It says deemed to be a document admissible in evidence subject to certain conditions. You have to prove that it is being used regularly and it is in lawful control, and it is the computer is regularly fed and being used in the ordinary course, and the same being operated properly and with accuracy, and also this copy is derived and fed from that, and that apart also the storing whether it's regularly or not, all these things has to be proved. Now look at this. Then that and 4 again contemplates issuance of a certificate. This is again, this is for the purpose of also the participation, and the official has to sign. Now, the best of he has to sign to the best of his knowledge, and there's a presumption in favor. Now, this is the procedure in the 65B. So now, because I mentioned about those 2 cases prior to the Amendment of Evidence Act, about my case, myself facing improving the Xerox photocopy copy and also positive one. Do we find any sort of change except adding little burden on the person who's trying to do it? No problem. But only because we are the gadgets are the very gadgets are staring at us, and because there's a possibility of manipulation. An intelligent man can always go and undo everything. So therefore, it's only to see that this is properly being proved in a properly and established in the manner as prescribed 65B. And this 65B, and also there are several other relevant provisions which are there, section 7 and other aspects. 65B also now being used very often nowadays. Now there are 2 cases which I thought I should mention about all these things. And yesterday also I was referring to this 2 cases of Disha and also the other Delhi case also. In Delhi case, what happened? Most of the evidence, if you follow that judgment also, from the Bombay case, the Navjot Singh's case also. So mostly the entire evidence is also again only electronic evidence. They said no problem, we'll accept it. They have accepted. And the Delhi case has taken its own time, much more longer than normally it would have taken. Whereas in Disha case, if you follow the whole incidents, even from the media also, we come across there appears to be no positive, except the videos, except the for the CCTVs. So therefore, they thought CCTVs is not enough, but they could not have proved it. They could have possibly, just as they have done in the Nirbhaya case also. So therefore, there is certain distinction in the way the entire approach is being made by the prosecution, by the state, or by the administration, by the people who are concerned. All these things. These things will send a lot of wrong signals, not only in the legal field, but also outside field. Also, even historically or sociologically, also we may accept, we may not accept, and all that. So therefore, this electronic form of evidence, which is being said to be as defined under these amendments, is nothing but is a stored or transmitted in electronic form, like computer evidence, digital, audio, digital audio, cell phones, digital fax machines, etc. And section 3 defines what exactly it amounts to. And all documents, it has been amended to include that this electronic evidence. But this document as such has not been properly been taken care while drafting the other provisions along with it. Then as per section 1.4, however, they sought to exclude the negotiable instrument, the power of attorney, the trust deed, the trust as such, the will deed, or any contract, any conveyance in respect to the property. And also, there is also a specific provision which contemplates a sort of notification to be issued not to cover any aspect. But now, looking at from these exclusion of certain items, as I was mentioning earlier, is it not a partisan? Are we weighing a general principle? Because now that the entire cyber activity has entered everywhere, because I was mentioning that even which is not only faster than cyber, not only faster than the COVID, but also even faster than the law. You know, when we were in college, one of my friend was mentioning that Prakash, you know, that there is one saying that the law can enter anywhere. So therefore this cyber activity also now has entered everywhere. I would accept the God, bringing forth the God as such. But still, why is this sort of things all not being extended? I want to ask a question, and also I want you to ponder over all this. Why not on the negotiables? Why not on the power of attorney? Why not on the trust activity? Why not on the will deed? Why not on the other kind of, and especially more properties and substantive property? So therefore, my son, my view is there's valid in the fundamental principles of law of evidence. And now, with this, there's a blanket permission for all these activities. Everybody knows a little intelligent person, an intelligent how things are also happening, how the hacking is going on, how things can happen, how the black can be made white, white can be made black, and how the picture. But still, in spite of now, are we really safe in spite of Section 85B also, 65B also? No, we are not. Even all that I have produced the entire evidence as contemplated 65B. I will produce a certificate. I'll establish one. I'll strictly comply with 1 to 4 with all the with all force and with all the evidence and available. I am beyond reasonable doubt. Still there's a possibility of the things, but still, of course, the the experts on the cyberspace, they say that if there is any sort of manipulation or tampering, it can be checked, it can be rather traced, it can be more available. But be that as it may, from a in the first instance, the first place, one has to face the music and may have to undergo all sort of ordeals if the such evidence is to be accepted. So therefore, these are all things which certainly therefore in Spain, the written approach is being made, it appears differently. They have introduced a self-assessment system. When evidence is produced of the electronic evidence, it is being said that each judge has to have his own self-assessment. He has to have virtually becomes an investigator and makes a sort of inquiry as to how to accept or not to accept, or even if to accept, to what extent it can be accepted and other. So therefore, this presumption as contemplated in the 85B is nothing but again a presumption. It is not a primary evidence as such. It is again a secondary evidence itself. Now look at even the presumptions as contemplated Evidence Act. There is specific provisions also. Now, do we come across any particular situation that any particular write-up in the presumptions provisions at all about the presumption which you can draw and in respect of the evidence which you produce at 65? No, 65 stands on its own. 63 stands on its own. So therefore, because in the absence of it, we can accept. But there's no question of presumption as such. It doesn't become original as such. But here, it becomes an original, virtually an original. Why the 65 is not brought under included in the provisions of the things, provisions of the other provisions of the Evidence Act, but unlike like section 85, 65, 85B and other. Therefore, these SMSs, MMS, emails, they are all admissible in evidence. Now the burden is now it is being cited. Now the Delhi High Court has taken a view in one of the Mohammed Afzal case of 2003. The burden, in the absence of any other doubting, rather comment or doubting thing existing, it has to be accuracy has to be accepted, and accuracy goes. It has to be taken as a beyond reasonable doubt. So therefore, all these evidence, whether on the electronic or non-electronic, I'll just try to compare because my entire approach today is only from comparing with the electronic and non-electronic. Now, a handwritten letter is on par with electronic signature, and handwritten signature and on par with electronic signature. A paper document is on par with electronic document. So therefore, even though there's a probability of tampering and other things, so therefore this electronic evidence, what exactly it really is, it is something like anything which is anything scribbled on the substance is called known to be a document under the general law. But Section 25 defines electronic record where it is recorded as bits and bytes, like figures and marks. So therefore, the ultimately, say, no doubt about it, I don't think anybody can dispute the fact that this evidence is nothing but an extended limb of hearsay. But still, it is because it is an input made by a man. Therefore, it is just like somebody was asking whether what is your date of birth? Can I say that my date of birth is 27th May 1949? How can I say that? I was not a witness to my own birth. So therefore, I had to fall back and it's person. Therefore, you can't be a witness of your own date of birth and other things. So the absence of contract, in the absence of contrary, the courts are accepting all these evidences, and normally it's also even look at from as director you were asking me about. Apart from the ordeal with which one undergoes in establishing the the authenticity and other aspects about the electronic evidence. But look at from the other side also. Suppose I want to challenge. I want to challenge this is a no. What sort of what's happening? What sort of steps I have to take? How is it? Is it enough simply giving a suggestions to them? Or is it enough simply my witness myself coming into the witness box and saying that yes, it's a tampered or manipulated and other things. Again, it calls for because the way the 65A and B have been drafted, it puts virtually the 65B is in a reverse gear, in a reverse form to that of the person who was challenged. That means again 1, 2, 3, 4 what are required for a person to prove also required for person not to prove. So therefore, this is the aspects which are a lot of confusion is coming up among the lawyers about the parties and including the judicial officers also. Once such evidence comes before, whether to accept or not accept. Many times the facts may disclose something happening or some confusions can be made. But still that itself cannot be based upon evidence which is not legal, a legally acceptable evidence. Now look at this. In one case of Delhi, Selvi case, is the Supreme Court has said that accept the narco analysis report because it violates Section 23 also. Now this is also another aspect. These provisions have to be on a particular facts of case, facts of circumstance of the case. Possibly each case it stands on its own. Each case may give rise to certain questions which are not only constitution but also the violation of the basic fundamental rights as well, including Article 20 and other aspects. But these are all aspects which normally germane or which may arise in those particular in those particular cases. So therefore, this technology now there is a saying that this technology itself will come out with some answers. Like for COVID problem, scientists are working out. They are saying that some remedy or some remedial medicine or some prevention something will come out. So therefore, technology itself provides answers to the problems raised by it, and computer forensics they ensure that manipulation can as well be established. And now look at the burden now. Now, mostly, as Isha case also, even if they establish, what sort of burden lies on the time possibly denied of such access also. So therefore, the difference between the primary ultimately why I was trying to compare 63, 65, 65A and 65B is that whatever we know, whatever we believe, we maybe may call it that we are all Victorians. We fall back only on those Victorian principles. But still the fact remains that those principles are still hold water even in case of 65A and 65B. But still that the difference and blood and it is now it impossible even though it is being said it's impossible to produce the word document and other things except the CDs and other things. Still again, a trial court lawyer, a trial court approach, a trial court system certainly provides for a sort of approach to be made for both those who are relying on it and those who are attacking it. So now there is also some sort of impression normally among the judiciary also that the most of the lawyers are not aware. Most of the parties are not aware. Even the judicial officers also are finding a lot of difficulty. and there's a lack of awareness also. But this is what we will be comment. But still, as with my information, both the officers are undergoing a lot of training, and they are being given sufficient facilities and all the other things. But still, the entire burden lies on the parties, on you and me, and possibly the persons who occupy the court and the persons who prosecute the cases and who defend the cases. There's a one wonderful discussion about this 65 and 65A and 65B in that Mohammed Afzal case. This is very, I suggest to all of you that no doubt it is running into several pages, but Mohammed Afzal case, that is 2005 11 SCC 600. It's a very, very, very nice judgment, especially by Justice P. Venkatramani. I know sitting with the other Justice Navlekar has considered various paras, later paras, of course. There's a lot of discussion about this 65A and 65B, and ultimately, in fact, he has given very liberal approach. I can put it that way. He has permitted to let the evidence, permit to accept and let it into evidence. Though witnesses there who can identify a signature of certifying officer was not examined. So still the evidence that act. So therefore, this it all depends again, no doubt, on the approach of the officers and other things. So the electronic records, as I was mentioning, that again, so no doubt it's a repetition of what I already said, that it's just shown that the computer has to be shown to be used regularly and regularly fed, and it must be under operation at the relevant point of time, and that is a reproduction which is so fed, and also a certificate. Then there is a clear bar. Once if there is something on part of the electronic record, some contents are there, and can the oral evidence be led? No, that is a bar is created in section 22A, but there is a presumption if the record is 5 years old under section 90A, and there is also a presumption under 80A about the gazettes, and therefore this is also again an extended about the presumption and other. Now there is one case where a hard disk is held to be a document, that is by Delhi High Court in 2008, because it's a electronic storage, and even if change, original and substance memory will retrieve. This is how it's approached. I am mentioning, though there is a possibility of any manipulation, but still the original cannot be lost sight. Now this in this case also, wherever this 2005 is also though the certificates are not filed, and the second it has been held. Sorry, I have to mention it has been held that so the evidence can be taken as secondary evidence. May I put it? May I with all permission, with all reservation on my without hurting anybody also. But certainly, this approach is not certainly again falling back on our basic Victorian principles. You make or say so, or any young man may also comment that this approach is you belong to Victorian age, and but that is not so. But ultimately, my aim is only to say that 65A, 65B doesn't forget about 63 and 65 also. So therefore, these two other, after, especially the contrasting situations in Delhi case and also Disha case, also shows how everything has been misunderstood, have been not only misapplied, but also how it has led to lot of delays and other things. Now in 2017 Supreme Court, in this case, the CCTV footage is being accepted and relied on. And there's one Karnataka and Kolkata case where evidence of witness can be recorded through video conferences. Now, this video conferences, because there is a lot of things the Supreme Court has also allowed that video conference. In 2003 Supreme Court in the Said Mahan case of Prafulla B. Desai, sorry, state of Maharashtra was a Prafulla B. Desai, that video conference evidence can be accepted. But this has given a lot of practical problems to the parties, to the lawyers, including the judge also, because you don't know who is standing right adjacent to it. We don't know whether the witness has been already been tutored, and we don't know what exactly happened earlier. Because That apart, all these approach, all of these avoiding face-to-face inquiries, serious effect on the deciding officer's opportunity or opportunity of at least observing the demeanor of the witness, whether he is speaking truth or he is speaking false or another thing. Because this plays a greater role. This plays a greater, even in the regarding electronic evidence also. Because if you avoid a witness, and have a throw video, there is certainly it's not going to convey in the same manner, in the manner in which the normal procedure is being adopted. Now I am being told authoritatively, rather not authoritatively, but it is to some extent that the serious consideration is already been given by the Supreme Court regarding the procedure to be adopted about the video conferences, and they have already framed the rules, and the rules will be coming, will be notified, and that will come in force, and which can be followed. But still, in spite of all that things, because I can tell you basically, as my experience as a lawyer and experience as a judge, evidence acts is such an act. Is a one who has got a full control over all the principles they are under, all the provisions they are under. The one he can play, he can do, undo, he can do the day as a night, and he can do the night as a day also. And this is a full piece of weapon in the hands of the lawyers as well. So therefore, this has to be kept in view before one apt for accepting, or rather how to proceed with such electronic evidence as well. Now, video clippings have been accepted. This is what Supreme Court is also as a primary evidence, and the complaint, and in fact this video, there is one judgment of Rajasthan High Court saying that even the compliance of Section 65 is also not necessary for accepting video conference. That is what in Preeti Jain's case versus Kumal Jain. Then the dying declaration. There is one interesting case of Bombay, 2008 Criminal Law Journal 1707, where a dying declaration was recorded by a TV channel, then without the permission of the medical officer. So therefore, and in the absence of certificate as under Section 65 as contemplated, so that was rejected. Look at the way this is. Suppose same thing is being recorded by in another in the same instead of TV channel by other prosecution also. Then again same problems will come up, and so many ifs and buts will crop up, and it will ultimately even slightest doubt through the entire prosecution. Then identification of particular person in the CCTV footage, because this is what is being normally opted for in most of the cases today, as that of the accused is an opinion of a morphology study of photograph is held to be a simpliciter and expert opinion. Now you know what sort of relevance reports give to the expert opinion. It's always doubted. It's always doubted. There is also possibility of one expert coming this way and another expert coming other way. That apart, even otherwise also, expert opinions are being seriously doubted and not being accepted also. Then this objection is one thing which has to be told to the particular concern, that objection as to the absence of non-compliance of the provision under Section 65 or even 65B, also as amended as required thereunder, has to be taken at the earliest point of time, not at the later stage. You can't realize the mistake and another thing. So therefore, the courts have held that you have no business to raise an objection at the back end of the case. Not only the court, the Supreme Court itself has rejected such an objection at the belated stage. But the in fact is acceptance of scientific evidence, technological evidence has already started being accepted even for quite a long period itself. When Justice Krishna, as long back in 1976, I said, yes, you can use scientific evidence to prove it. No problem about it. The only question is, principle is all right. You can use it. Question is a proof thereof. Whether have you proved it or not. Then There's one the much earlier to our Supreme Court judgments interpreting the 65B and 65A and the conditions required and other things. The earliest judgment is by the U.S. Court, District Court of Maryland in 241 FRD 534. 241 FRD 534 Lauren versus Michael American Insurance Company, where the test has been laid out. Virtually, so verbatim, the Supreme Court has followed up this and is reiterated once again. One is, first thing is it relevant? Second thing, is it authentic? Third thing, is it hearsay? Next, is it original or duplicate or admissible as secondary evidence? And lastly, does it have a probative value and serve the test of any unfair prejudice? So these are the four tests. If for convenience sake, I will reiterate because this is the one thing what is repeated in by Supreme Court and reiterated also. Is it relevant? Is it authentic? Is it hearsay? Or is it original? Or duplicate admissible as secondary evidence? Or does it have probative value? And what about the unfair prejudice? So ultimately, the whatever is being reiterated interpreting the 65B and 65A in the qualifying 63 and 65 is nothing but again repetition or not reiteration of same very old principles. And as a director was asking about the photographs being issued and other things. Again, here the question also, the practical problem comes about all this. Once not only the satisfaction about all these conditions, and apart from the influencing factor will be unfair prejudice. So therefore, now even if you compare 1665 or 65-68B, virtually, according to me, they stand on the same lines. Because they are part of the very same enactment. And 65A, 65B is followed later to 63 and 65B. So therefore, you can't be, only thing difference you find is 63, 65 is not specific. Not procedure is not there. But conditions as interpreted as laid down is same. And whereas on 65A and 65B, there is specific. 1, 2, 3, 4 has been laid. And both aspects, the aspects in the 65 is mandatory. The conditions under later 65A and B are mandatory. And the 63, 65 applies to the evidence other than electronic record. Whereas this one applies to electric. Now, comparing in this word, you can put it that 63, 65 though and 65, 65A and 65B both forming part of the same enactment. And that enactment which is being only a procedural law. And earlier provisions, they are general law. And these later provisions is a specific law, governing a specific field and specific type of evidence. This is all the thing which you can have a sort of approach and ultimately you have to see how whether it's proved or not and other things. Now there are various other decisions about the transcription of a recorded conversion of which is not being accepted, and also interception of telephone call in CD and CDR without a certificate of 65B is not being accepted. So therefore, the compliance of 65 or compliance of 65B is quite mandatory, and possibly one may also argue in a particular situation or in a particular facts or circumstances of the case, that having regard to even in a case where the electronic evidence has been used, they can fall back to 1665 as the judges have fallen back in some of the cases which I mentioned earlier. They're not applying 65B, they applied 65 and said, yes, you can accept, or yes, you cannot accept another. So therefore, this is what follows. So most of these provisions which have been amended, and no doubt especially whenever a new legislation comes forth, many a thought has to be given, and whether really are we still holding the field in covering the situation or not is also a question. because as I mentioned in the beginning itself, law is always 10 years old, but are we following up whatever the advancement as exists today itself? Now, ultimately, the basic principle I just want to quote the Lord Hooper in one oldest case in a proceed in 8 new Parliament history 38, where he was mentioning especially in a case or in a proceeding against Bishop Atterbury. I hope you know the Bishop Atterbury's case, who was banished because of his activity against the royal families and other things. Ultimately, of course, he was convicted and punished and other thing, but still, he says the principle, I suppose, which we cannot forget. The principle, as I was mentioning to you, that we cannot forget 65, or considering 65A and 65B, is virtually the same as existed and continues to exist and certainly holds the truth. This is what he said. The wisdom and goodness of our law appear is nothing more remarkably than the perspective, certainty, and clearness of the evidence it requires to fix a crime upon any man, whereby his life, his liberty, and his property may be concerned. Herein we glory and pride ourselves and are justly the envy of all of our neighbors' nations. Our law in such cases requires evidence so clear and commencing that so clear and convincing that every bystander, the instant he hears it, must be fully satisfied of the truth of it. It admits of no surmises, innuendos, post consequences, or harsh constructions, nor anything else to be offered as evidence, but what is real and substantial according to the rules of natural justice and equity. Therefore, ultimately, I conclude, I will give a final word to the effect that to say that this the entire approach has to be in a pragmatic angle rather than more in a stricter angle. So therefore, I especially the most staring cases which will still troubles me even whenever I recall those the Nirbhaya case or even Disha case also. Nirbhaya case, lot of sufferance because of the delays and everything. Ultimately, you don't know. I can tell you even with my experience as a judge, but for the fact that media exposure, media coverage, and so many things said, by taking the evidence, considering the evidence on record, possibly one would have acted, they could have got acquittal also. But in Disha case, now where is the trial? Where is the evidence? Even the CCTV footage is also possibly, we don't know. If you look at from the 65B, that would have been enough. But the administration thought no, possibly not satisfied, and ultimately given a final call and putting the persons to either way. So therefore, in both cases, you have now where is Article 15. So therefore, in this submission, I give any call I conclude, and I request any questions on the aspect on the topic or the subject which we have covered. Thank you for the wonderful opportunity which is given to me for this today's. Yes, there's one question from Anmisha. Yes.
Yes, sir. We have a couple of questions in house, so I will start asking one. So, Your Lordship, the first question is regarding that is our investigation team, prosecution, and the lower judiciary who appreciate the nature of electronic evidence or competent authority enough to handle the special evidentiary requirement of the high-tech crimes generated through the use of computer? So, this is the first question which we have on the house.
No, see, there is a one thing which I thought I would like to share with you. See, there is a big gap, an iron door, a closed door rather, between the bar and the judiciary, and between the bar and the bench rather, what I could say. And also, even the advocate, even the prosecution, and their own clients, whether even they call it as a state. There is no sort of coordination or repeated coordination of meetings or discussions about all these aspects. What I say, you may not accept. What you say, I may not answer. Or what you want to say, I don't know. But I want to say, you know. This is what a big gap has come, and that is the ultimately leading to the 90% of the acquittals which are now coming out. Only because of this sort of rather not a coordinated approach or coordinated consideration in the entire process of the investigation, entire process, even on civil side also. This is what's happening. This is my personal.
Your Lordship, the second question is that is our principles of evidence in accordance with the adversarial system or it suits inquisitorial system?
In fact, that's why I was slightly little vociferous when I was mentioning about I think by falling back to 65A, A and B, by overlooking 63 and 65 and all that. I said there is virtually 65, 63 and 65, you can put it adversarial, 65A and 65B, I can put it other way. So therefore, the approach is only more maybe more narrower. Therefore, it's not adversarial at all. You have no say at all. Do you have anything any day? What? Suppose you as a treat as a lawyer, yourself as a lawyer, the evidence comes before you. What objection, what cross examination can you do? As I am mentioning again, unless you repeat the entire similar such exercise in reverse, you summon the record, you produce the record, you get an expert, you get a expertise from that particular angle and show this is what's happened, this is what I, but for that there is no other at all. So therefore, there is the question of adversarial.
Let me add to
Scope
this,
is
sir.
very
Let me add, if you permit, Lordships.
yes.
Yeah. In fact, the electronic evidence first appreciation has to be done by the defense lawyer. Unless he thinks that that particular thing is required or enough to prove the case or defend the case. If he's not happy with that part, if he's not comfortable with that, if he's not conversant with that particular part, it is difficult to take it onto the evidence first of all. Whether it is inquisitorial, that's what a secondary part I'm talking about. And whatever, whenever you want to prove the case as evidence, it is the first starts from the defense lawyer or the prosecution if he wants to depend their case only on the evidence. If they are not happy, if they are not dependent, if they are not expert to appreciate that particular part, there is no use of the evidence at all, because many times the evidences are not proved because failure of the investigating officers as at a crime scene at all. If you see the Disha case as referred by your lordship, there is a question, there is a doubt about the persons involved in the crime. There is also a doubt that the people shown on the CCTV footage and the people presented in the court as a accused are totally different. It gives a lot of doubts. Identity is a problem. Identity of the persons, because many times the crime will be done in a darkness or away from the CCTVs, maybe backside of the person which cannot be used for identification of part of it. Like that, many reasons may be there in to mistake in the identification part. Though we have the evidence, to what extent we can use those evidences is a very biggest question. Do we have sufficient knowledge about that evidence? Can we prove legally, or can we? Is there any possibility of a defense lawyer talking to them? Like that, the advocate who is starting the evidence or presenting the evidence has to take very part. There is a one case which was informed to us during some lecture also by one of the cybercrime SP. You know, there is a recruitment process in some state for the forest officers. There is a question paper, online evaluation was done, the marks were made, the list was prepared on meritorious grounds or marks on merit marks. Suddenly there were some problems. The higher ups and the ministerial political people or the people has phoned them. They wanted somebody to get selected. That was informed to the some person. He has taken the help of the some computer operator, changed the marks to show that it is genuine. So at the end of the day, there was a case filed against that particular person for involving. Even though entire data is removed. Entire hard disk was totally formatted or damaged. Nothing was there. It was investigated. At the end of the day, it was identified by private sources that this particular person has manipulated. The reason is this gentleman has made its copy in his house in a laptop, made some kind of remarks, recommendation of the CM, recommendation of the PM, recommendation of Mr. X, recommendation of Honorable Justice Prakash Rao. Like that, he made some kind of notes. Even after removing everything, that gentleman, that information was able to dug up, and that information came to light, and it was proved that this entire thing is a farce. Now, one more live case is going on. I'm not entering the politics of that particular part. There is a letter given by some officer to the election commission in central government. This is purported. This letter is, he has given that I have made this letter. There was an objection for that letter. CID started inquiring. New things are coming up. Under those circumstances, to what extent the evidence can be taken into consideration is a very biggest question. All I think I conclude everywhere the genuinity of the person presented, or the intention of the person who is presenting, the art of cross-examination, the art of chief examination, the art of technology he has, all this plays very important role than that of whatever talking about.
That is true. That is what one thing which from my experience I can say, especially in criminal cases, the acquittals or whatever it is being only because of the delays. And in fact, I was talking to the IPS officers in the National Police Academy also. Those who are practicing on the criminal side and those who have seen those criminal cases, especially, I have also dealt with many criminal cases. I found that most of the investigation, ultimately charge sheet which is filed, every charge sheet always leaves behind some dark spots, some gaps. It looks if you look at it critically, those gaps are made intentionally so that the defense can fully take advantage thereof and get a clean acquittal. And most of the acquittals either because the witness is turning hostile or because of this clear-cut gaps. Therefore, as being some so many comments are also coming out outside also. If there is an early trial as early as possible with proper investigation and without change of the officer, without there being proper coordination and other things, I'm sure all these things can be avoided. But now, as you have pointed out, the couple of instances which you have mentioned, the 65A and 65B has given scope for more manipulation, more manipulated records, more sort of harassment rather than the existing provisions of 63 and 65. 65 never allowed any such things to come in on record. It puts even at the door saying no entry. But it's very difficult to comply with 65. Existence of original and copying and other things is not so easy. Normally, the lawyers also they did not suggest it unless in some exceptional cases they are used to opt for it. It's a more exceptional option rather than a general one. But whereas now 65B has become of general applicability in almost every case. 65B has been sought for some electronic evidence is coming forth, and yes, you go and hang him. This is what's happening.
Lordship 65B, again, a kind of a general, as you said, general rule, and very, very important issue related to that. It leads to a best and expert, what's called cross-examination. A person who is certifying that this particular is a original, or I've seen, or I've verified, I've taken the print out of those things, or this is a copy of that particular one. If the certification is given that particular person, we have to think is only a secondary evidence part, not a first part of it. Number one. Number two, that particular person has to be put to cross-examination. It is a kind of a expert opinion is giving. just like any expert from the forensic lab, whatever it is after seeing your fingerprints or whatever the other prints, these fingerprints belong to so and so person because of the verification. Similarly, this particular printout is the same because I verified the font of that particular mission of that one and all those things they will give a certificate. This is the same of that particular part of it. It's nothing but a second. Even though we are talking about the 65B, very important of the electronic, we need more supportive provisions in the law to have this particular evidence, which is lacking now. The same rule is going on in US and the same thing is going on in UK also. How to improve this kind of, how it has to be done to plug or nail the correct person for this particular person for evidences.
Therefore, I think now, because as you rightly said, it automatically, once certificate is there, it automatically becomes original, the primary evidence.
Yeah.
So therefore, there is no scope at all. But there, if at all, if you are appearing on the other side, necessarily you have to have a big exercise of investigation, a scientific study to find out the manipulation is there, or if you are mostly being advised also, not only being advised, the parties are become very intelligent. You also opt for such, even if the primary evidence with the certificate is produced, the other side also will opt for some sort of manipulation. He
Yes.
will come up with something they record, something else. Even good as it used to happen in good old days. See, there is one interesting case which I came across when I visited Rajamandri. A suit for promise for recovery of money and a promissory note, which is a forged one. So normally you expect a defense to take a plea of forgery. No, the defense took a plea that yes, I paid it, and he produced a forged receipt, and the court has accepted both the forged documents as true and dismissed the suit. This is the same thing. Why don't you think that similar approach can also be happen with all the so much of intelligence and being spreading there, and activity also happening this side or other side? The only thing is, as you rightly pointed out, possibly this side will have a disadvantage position as long as he is not posted with what exactly the material is forthcoming. Once the material comes and there is a hurry the document is marked, the defendant is asked to complete his side. He doesn't have any time at all. Even in civil cases also, many times startling facts, startling evidence, startling things are coming forward. The other side will not have proper opportunities, and the case is liable for years together before they take for inquiry. These are all practical problems. True, but ultimately, as in that case, that Bombay case also, Justice Venkataramaredi has rightly pointed out, he did not rely on Justice Honorable Judge did not rely on 65B. He relied on 65 itself and accepted this. So look at the wonderful situation. Even when the 65B is staring at you, he says, "No, I will not accept. I will accept 65." So these are all situations coming out, they virtually defeating the very 65B also.
In
Yes.
other live examples we have at present, now frauds are committed in banks by
Yes.
opening fraudulent account, by showing the Aadhaar cards or PAN cards which are created by fraud. That particular photo will not be there. So all these are coming up. Once entire crime is committed, then only the things will come up for the investigation. At the end of maybe 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, whatever it may be. By the time the person is not traced out, the evidence is not totally part of it. The people will be ready with the evidence or cross-examination to prove that this particular claim is totally wrong, allegation is totally wrong, that happening. You might be hearing, in fact, we have a case with our Justice Etrajulu sir. Justice Etrajulu sir's mail is hacked by some person. A mail is sent in his name saying that I am in South Africa. I lost my purse, my everything. So, all please you send some amount to my account and given some account number. So, many people phoned him when he went to South Africa. Really is in only the high-tech city. So under those circumstances, it is a very difficult to trace out. When money is drawn by that particular person, after opening the accounts, taking the amount by himself, and whereabouts not known, it may take years and years to find out. Under these circumstances, how to curtail this kind of frauds by using when they are using the electronic media.
The law, apart from the law, one has to be, because I said the law is always 10 years behind. Once even, and there's also a saying, where there's a will, there's a way, where there's a way, there's a law, where there's a law, there's always a loophole. So therefore, take full advantage. So therefore, and with the passing of time, so much of advancements in the activities and intelligence and other thing, the law becomes arduous, virtually arduous. So therefore, it all depends on ultimately the sort of coordinated effort by the administration, both all the three wings of the parliament, executive, and judiciary, to act in a more so that sociologically we will be able to help the society or the ultimate common man, the citizen, and the rest. And all these delays and one not having the proper understanding with the other, this slice to this type of problems. Once another thing also, as long as there is a proper disposal of the cases at the earliest, if it is not there, certainly this will lead to all sort of newly invented situations, newly invented offences, new thinking, and new sort of harassments.
And one more issue, sir. We are having the Evidence Act, which is a procedural law. All general principles we have. There is one more act called Information Act.
Yes.
There is a general accept. Yeah, there is a generally accepted principle. When there is a generally a specialism, there is a non-derogant. That's it. When there is a special law that will be superseding the general law principles.
Yes.
And how to, when you're talking 63, 63B, 60, 65B, how can you depend upon 63 when there is 65B and have some provisions under the Evidence Act? Is it not appreciate the existing principles of law?
No doubt, see that approach is also correct. I don't disagree, but now many times instead of talking in a more general way about the parties, any clash between certain provisions or the principles as such, now as it exists, all these four provisions are existing in the statute. Now all these provisions has to be looked from practical angle on depending on the facts and circumstances of the case. Now ultimately the key question is whether there is electronic evidence. If there is electronic evidence, go to 65A, 65B. If there is no electronic evidence, go to 63 and 65. But the Supreme Court did not accept this approach. Supreme Court said already in the absence of 60 certificate coming forth, I will fall back on 65. So this sort of clash, all this ultimately, as a judge, I can tell you, it all depends on the facts of each case. Suppose it is what I personally feel that yes, this has to be there. This is how it has to be concluded, or this is the conclusion which can be drawn only. So therefore, I will try to twist the law. I will try to apply the law. I may fall back on 65, or I may not also. I mean, suppose if you want to give the benefit of doubt, I will say 65 will not apply, and 65B is not complied. Legal acquittal.
Sir, I have small objection for this kind of thing, or my idea about this. When a judge is exercising discretion from shifting this side to that side, is it not going to disturb the balance of convenience and causing harm to the parties?
It is not the question of balance and convenience. It's ultimately what we look as a judge. I'm telling you, whether rule of law, is there any legal evidence? Whether that is the begging question. If there is legal evidence, all right, hang him. If there is no legal evidence, acquit him. So we consider, if you want to say that there is legal evidence to hang him, doesn't matter whether 65B or 65 to hang him. If they want to give acquit on the facts of the case, apply 65, give benefit, or So apply 65B, there is no non-compliance. This is what, so there ultimately, it all depends what exactly constitutes the legal evidence. Even with the existing provisions itself. That's why I said, it's the art of, in the hands of the advocacy, in taking full, in applying or playing with the provisions of the Evidence Act. And also confusing the whole issue and ultimately trying to help him or trying to hang him.
Sir, may I add one more thing, sir? I said legal evidence. The electronic evidence has been agreed or approved as a legal evidence. We are discussing the same thing, sir.
Yes, yes.
So, Mr.
It is a legal evidence.
Yes, yes. That's what we are discussing about. Mr. Dilip, can you ask other questions?
Sure, sir. So, sir, Ms. Anvesha is asking, origin of electronic records, although can be proved for all electronic records, is it feasible for courts to rely on cyber experts or cyber forensic experts in all the cases that come before it?
Yes,
Or
yes,
is
yes,
it cost
certain, sir.
effective?
It is certainly court can accept, but normally whether to produce such an expert or not depends on ultimate the choice of the prosecution or choice of the defense. But if they want to produce, then certainly they can produce and can also rely on it. But there is one question: always this expert evidence is being looked down by the courts. It is not so. It's not such a positive evidence straight away to accept it. Because if you produce a expert, I will come out with another expert to say contra. This is how again practical problem will come. But certainly, suppose look at from the angle as Director was mentioning. Suppose 60 or compliance of 65B, everything is compliant. Certificate is produced, everything is there. So therefore, suppose you or B, suppose I appearing on the defense or other side. What is my method of disproving it? Call the expert, and I will try to disprove it and slowly take the case out of my clutches. So therefore, again, if I produce some expert, then other side will come with another expert. So expert versus expert. Ultimately, what happens? Sanyasu, Buddha. Therefore, this expert evidence has got its own little weakness in being taken into consideration. But certainly, one cannot avoid. I can tell you as a lawyer also, if suppose I need to prove it, necessarily I can prove it only through this production of the expert. That I cannot avoid just because it may be accepted or it may not be accepted. But all the formalities and the rigmarole with which I had to undergo has to be undergone. So many times we may also say, judge may also say, because you did not examine the expert, so therefore I will not accept it. So the expert evidence is necessary. Expert evidence can be considered or depends on facts of each case.
Okay, sir. In our next question, Your Lordship, Mr. Hitesh
Yes.
is asking, when a personal conversation over a mobile call is recorded, what is the evidentiary value of such recording, and whether privacy laws will have any effect over the evidentiary value of the same?
Certainly. Again, it all depends on the proving whether has it been proved. The identity, the certificates, copying it from original, and maintenance again following the 65. But again, this if it violates one's personal aspect, but if it requires, it all depends on the for what purpose it is being used. Suppose in a husband and wife matrimonial matter, yes, it is being accepted also. But sometimes it all depends on to what extent it can be accepted. It all depends on the facts of each case and the relief which are sought and the defense which are taken in other cases. There's also a case I was mentioning also about the husband and a telephone call. But then again, for there has to be a certificate for the 65B. It can be. It has to be received, but not for other for using it as for any other purpose. Suppose you can't just to damage the character as the individual. in a totally different situation or different case, which has no relevance as such, cannot be accepted.
This call data was discussed in a 2014 Supreme Court case.
Yes.
In detail, it is given how 65B is applicable here, what kind of certificate it will be given.
Yes.
When the certificate is given, what's the capacity, responsibility, and accountability of the person who's signing it, who is authorized to sign. All this discussed in this particular case in 2014 by Supreme Court. In the Anwar case, that can be referred for this particular.
Anwar case is
very important case that can be referred to.
Yes, yes.
Next question. Rajalakshmi has given I have given a question. Evidence,
Sir.
how far is helpful to make to identification of the accused in the criminal case?
Which evidence? That's also can be accepted. That's what I said. In fact, I had referred to a particular case also there in my earlier for the purpose of identification. I referred earlier somewhere. Again, ultimately, begging question is whether you comply 65B. And did you got over the whatever the negative suggestions which come forth from the other side, or doubts? But it all depends on the one case I was mentioning about the on morphology expertise was used to identify by the identification as such. That was not accepted, unless because certificate was not produced. The other format was not compliant. Ultimately, whatever the document is there, whatever evidence is there, you comply 65B and your job is over. This is the one.
But this particular case, identification is questioned in Murugan case in 2019, the Madras Divisional Bench case, where a person was shown in the CCTV and a same person was presented in the court of law, and judge was shown this CCTV, and judge was not able to identify whether the same person is there in the CCTV or the person shown in CCTV, same person who is physically present here, because of so many reasons. So under these circumstances, those evidences only suggest you, not a conclusive one.
It's not a conclusion. Certainly. Can't be
This is what
one.
There's the divisional bench of the Madras High Court has given the reply for that. When there's a CCTV, even though there is a certificate from the people, it is only the judge who has to take the discretion about the identification part. Even this kind of the question is asked in our what's called Disha case also.
Yes.
But they are refused it because it has not gone to the level of prosecution and in the court. That's why that was not discussed much.
One thing.
Next question, please.
One thing is there that all this material, electronic evidence, even though is considered to be primary, doesn't amount to a conclusive one. All again subject to all sort of referrals, rebuttals, and proving and getting over all practical difficulties.
Your Lordship, next question is posed by Ms. Dr. Himawati. She is asking, won't electronic evidence act more as hearsay evidence and a ground for plea of benefit of doubt?
Certainly, in fact, basically, if you looking from the angle of 63-65, this electronic evidence is nothing but hearsay evidence. So to get over that objection only, 65B required all those conditions to be complied with. And once those conditions complied with, followed by a certificate, the objection, the shade of hearsay evidence goes. But certainly, as a prior to amendment, these things have been stated rejected as a hearsay evidence. That's why earlier, prior to this IT Act, the telephone conversations were not playing a greater role in any cases.
Your Lordship, next question is asked by Mr. Mrityunjay. He is asking, what are the requirements to categorize electronic evidences as primary and secondary evidence? And what are your views on the admissibility of original electronic evidence but not obtained through proper means or channel?
The very rider which you have added, not obtained itself shows that there is no non-compliance of 65B. Once it goes, basically they take it that entire electronic evidence is only a secondary evidence. So therefore, to convert into or to get it rather validated to treat it as a primary evidence, follow 65B. So in the absence of 65B conditions, it remains a secondary, and in the absence of all the originals and certificates, it can't be accepted. So there's no question of calling a distinction to be applied, because it's only ultimately if you look at the very object for which 65A and 65B is made, only to allow the passage of a secondary evidence into that of a primary. This is 007 license for a James Bond to kill.
Next
Your
question,
Lordship,
please.
Your Lordship, Saurabh Siddhartha is asking about the validity of the electronic signatures in the judicial institutions and how far it is safe and admissible.
And that is not being accepted so far. But again, even that there, for that also there is specific provision. There is specific signatures procedure is there. If that is there, for which a presumption is also be allowed under say 85B, like a secured electronic record. So therefore, if that be so, it can be accepted. Are you able to hear? Are you
Yes,
able to
Lordship.
hear?
Yes, Your Lordship, we are able to hear you. Arun sir, I
If
request you to please stop sharing this.
yeah. Therefore, if such signature is there, and coming forward on any particular site, it's again a presumption is there. It can form taken as a big, but whether these things are
Mr. Nitin, unmute your mute yourself, Mr. Nitin.
Yeah,
Yes, your lordships.
if these things are followed in judiciary or not, that's a different question. It's different applicability. Certain measures had to be taken by the concerned authorities and to completely convert. Now the regular even the courts are also conducting the entire all this like the one session which we are holding, the regular arguments, and also the possibly tomorrow the trials also not taken. Only thing is the entire machinery and everybody, the lawyer, the party has to be geared up to come out with such session. Then only otherwise this extension of the lockdowns and some practical problems and the distance maintenance and other things. Now I suppose they are now procedure as we are now following.
Let me add here about the digital signature. Digital signature is only a signature used to communication. It is not an evidence. But whenever there is a question whether the message is given by a particular party or mail is given by a particular party or signed by a particular party, then they say this is a digital signature, I used it. That can be proved. Digital signature in its own is not an evidence.
Yes. Unless it is secure.
Yes, it is secure also. Digital signature is the purpose of digital signature is totally different. Not as a evidence, as to secure the transaction.
Yes.
Yes, next.
Your Lordship, Anvisha ma'am has posted another question where she is citing an incident in year 2000 that the presumption of genuineness of electronic evidence 5-year old seemed to be a good number of years. Considering the advancement in last 20 years, is an amendment required over here? Or rather, can we actually do away with such a presumption for electronic evidence?
Certainly, it can be extended, but apparently the legislature must be in its wisdom has put some limitation. So that is the policy matter, a policy decision, and with all the experience which may come across tomorrow in future, possibly as the time passes, it also gets extended. There's no difficulty. Before
Let
5
me
years,
let me add this also. 4 years for that particular document only. Whatever the evidence you are present in the court, that will be questioned 5 years from that date, not for all. Suppose if you are presenting in 2020, it will go from 2015 and about the genuine part. So it is not 2005, 2000 plus 5 years, 2005, it is not 2005. 5 years from the date of that particular presentation of the evidence in the court of law. That is the issue.
That is
Please. Next question.
Your Lordship, next question is asked by Mr. Karthik, where he is asking what value does any document which is obtained under Right to Information Act has in evidence in civil cases?
certainly it's only it amounts to a public document. Any answer given by the authorities thereunder is only a public document, can be marked as that's all. Now, nothing beyond, nothing like its contents. And again, whatever any charge is to be made or if something is to be brought out, then it requires an independent approach and independent proof and independent. That itself
Mr. Karthik, it is not electronic evidence, please. It is a document submitted by the concerned authority to you, sent to authority to you. If they are sending this scanned copy of that particular party, question whether it is a that alone will become a public evidence. Remember. Mr. Dilip,
So we were not able to hear you.
wonderful, very good. Not to hear me is a good thing, na? Okay, what you are not heard?
Just the last.
What's the last question? What's the answer? About what?
No, sir, the last part, I think you got muted, but it's fine now. We can hear you now.
You are hearing me now?
Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
was
sir.
talking about the this particular RTA application part.
Okay.
Addressed to Mr. Karthik. What are the document that is given by the concerned authority to Mr. applicant is the only public document. It is not an electronic document at all. But if that authority is sending scanned copy of the answer sent by by them, then that will become the electronic document. We can use that particular electronic document rules and regulations for that particular purpose. So other than that, the RTA answers given by people will be only other documents. And about Mr. Krishna, we'll be answering you later, sir. Okay? Any questions?
No, sir, I think all the questions are over.
Hello? Justice,
All the questions are over.
are you there, sir?
yes, very much here.
Okay. Now we have completed the third day on electronic evidence part of it. Lordship has worked very hard, brought many concepts, cases, and also the way the courts are handling their experiences through them. And we are very, very fortunate to have you here, sir. We are very much thankful to you. We learned a lot of things out of the discussion part of it. Other people ask some many questions. I appreciate the participant for their valuable questions and so valuable feedback. Let us continue this for next 2 days. Tomorrow we are having one more lecture on FIR, charge sheet, investigation. We all know very well the meaning concept of those things, but issue is in a practical part of it. What FIR contains, how it has to be prepared, and how this has to be filed. If FIR is not filed within 24 hours, whatever that is, rules are there. What is the recourse we have? Why people will be keeping the accused in the courts more than 60 days, more than 90 days, which is permissible under CRPC, sometimes up to 180 days, sometimes to 1 year also they did it. So what are the reasons for this? There is a claim from them that they have not completed the investigation. So that's one claim they will take always. So under these circumstances, FIR, filing charge sheet, and other things will be very, very important for our discussion. Let us join together tomorrow at the same time. And once again, thank all the participants, more particularly Mr. Dilip for taking all the field in organizing this, and our honorable Justice Mr. Prakash Rao Garu, who has taken a lot of field to address you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to all.
Thank you, sir.
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 sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for all of you.
Sir, thanks a lot, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Shall I end meeting, sir, with this?
Dilip sir, I'll call you once on the Cisco thing now. I got the whole
Yes.
of second mem.
Yes, sir. I just now got
Sure,
the mail.
thank you.
We will discuss on call. Thank you.
Yeah.